The message came from the edge of known space, faint and broken, like a scream through a cracked window. It traveled across dying stars, forgotten worlds, and dust-choked silence. And somehow, against every law of physics, it reached Earth. No one knew how. No one knew why. But the moment it was received, everything changed. In a quiet control room buried deep under the surface of Luna Base Alpha, Earth's most advanced, listening station picked up the signal. It wasn't loud. It wasn't clear. Just static, followed by a high-pitched tone, then a whisper, a voice speaking in an alien tongue no one had heard in centuries. It lasted only 6.3 seconds. That was enough. Enough to bring fear. Enough to bring action. Enough to send Earth's most powerful war fleet into the void. Admiral Arya Kane stood at the edge of the main deck aboard the ESS Revenant, her dark eyes locked on the holofeed of the signal around her. Officers moved quickly, whispering, checking scans, running AI translations. No one dared speak to her directly. Not yet. She had commanded Earth's defense armada for nearly 2 decades. She wasn't just a leader. She was a survivor of the Pluto uprising, the scourge of Europa, and the Mars collapse. The soldiers called her the Iron Pulse. The last time she launched the full fleet, an entire enemy civilization disappeared in 1 solar cycle. This time felt different. She listened again. The message was broken, distorted, buried under waves of static. But the translation AI pulled out one word. Just one. Erase. No name, no coordinates, no source species. Just erase. A command, a warning, a prophecy. No one could tell, but Kane understood something. No AI could compute something only a human could feel. This wasn't just a distress call. It was a last breath. Earth hadn't received a signal from the galactic network in 73 years. Not since the last of the Central Galactic Union cut ties and vanished. Back then, Earth had begged to be heard. Offered peace, trade, science. All they got was silence. The galaxy saw Earth as a death world, a place of storms, radiation, predators, and people who refused to die. They weren't wrong. But they underestimated what Earth could become when left alone in the dark. They grew, they hardened, they remembered, and now someone out there, someone desperate, had reached out. And that mistake would change everything. Kane turned to her communication chief, a young officer named Mercer. His hands trembled slightly as he updated the projection. The origin point is a ghost sector. Designation, Theta 7. No record since. The Union fell. Entire system marked as abandoned. He said, any survivors? We don't know. No life signs detected yet, but the signal. It's coming from a planet-sized object. Might be artificial. Might be... It's wrapped in some kind of field. Scrambles most scans. But the signal burst keeps repeating every 11 minutes. Kane stared at the coordinates, then at the crew gathered on the bridge. Get me fleet command, she said. A pause. And prepare all squadrons. This is not a science mission. 3 hours later, Earth's Deathworlder fleet launched from the orbital shipyards above Jupiter, 500 ships of steel, plasma, and wrath. These weren't peacekeepers. These weren't diplomats. Every ship carried memory-hardened soldiers trained not only in warfare, but in resisting psychic attack, neural, scrambling, and emotional collapse. They were the result of centuries of pain. The galaxy had forgotten them. Now they would be remembered. The journey to Theta 7 took just under 5 days through fold space. It's long enough for the crew to go silent. Long enough for the AI to dig through. Ancient records. Long enough for doubts to spread. Dr. Ellen Rios, the fleet's leading xenolinguist, reviewed the signal over and over. She tried matching it to over 5,000 known languages. Nothing fit. But in the last 0.6 seconds of the message, she heard something chilling. Not a word, not a scream, a heartbeat. Weak, slow, biological. Someone was still alive and they were afraid. The fleet arrived at Theta 7 on the 6th day. The system was cold, dead. The sun had collapsed long ago into a white dwarf. The surrounding planets were lifeless husks, except one. The third planet from the star, Covered in deep clouds, wrapped in glowing energy veins, the surface shimmered like water, though it was stone, and at the center of it stood a tower. A single spire reaching into the sky. The signal came from inside. Kane deployed the first recon squad Alpha-grade soldiers in full memory armor, dropped onto the surface with biodampeners and emotion locks. They landed near the tower's base. 5 minutes later, contact was lost. Not with their signals, with their minds. They kept talking. But they didn't know who they were. Didn't know what Earth was. Didn't know why they were even on the planet. They had been erased. Not killed, not injured, just wiped. Kane's face hardened. Bring them back. Full recall. Her XO shook his head. Can't. They don't remember how to get back. Then came the second burst from the tower, louder. This time, everyone on the bridge flinched. For a second, Kane felt something crawl up her spine. A chill, a whisper in the back of her mind. She turned. No one was speaking, but the AI assistant running ship diagnostics flashed red. System warning. Unauthorized memory pattern detected. Emotion resonance field active. Neural instability risk. High. Kane gave the order. Ready the fleet? Weapons hot. This is no longer an investigation. This is war. Behind her, the giant viewing screen focused on the tower, as if it knew it had been seen. And then for the first time it responded. A new signal. Not in alien language, not in code, but in clear, broken English. Do not come. It took our minds. It will take yours. Let us be forgotten. But Earth never forgot, especially not when someone told them to walk away, because Deathworlders had one rule. Older than stars, if someone cries for help, you don't ask what made them cry, you end it, whatever it is. And so the fleet moved into formation, above a planet full of silence and broken minds. Earth's wrath gathered, the tower waited, the signal pulsed, and in that moment, the galaxy turned, and remembered who the real monsters were. Not the thing that erased, it's memory. Not the shadows in the dark, but the ones who came from a blue death world to burn the silence down. The first dropships fell through the clouds like silent hammers. 10 black vessels pierced the thick, glowing storm layer above the planet. Inside them were Earth's finest, memory-shielded soldiers wearing Neuralock helmets, each heartbeat synced with AI fire control systems. These were not peacekeepers. These were the Voidwalker soldiers trained to survive in war zones where even thought was a weapon. Commander, Lexi Hart led Alpha Squad. Her orders were clear. Land near the tower, search for survivors, and determine what, if anything, still lived down there. But as her ship broke through the clouds, she saw something that froze her for half a second. The world below was not in ruins. It was still not dead. It's not alive. Just waiting. The surface of the planet looked almost fake. The soil was smooth and glassy. No wind, no movement. Trees stood tall, frozen mid-bloom. Rivers looked like liquid mercury, unmoving and perfect. There were cities, huge ones, covered in strange geometric towers, but they were spotless. Wreckage, no ash, no blood. Everything was untouched, but empty. Alpha Squad landed on a metal platform near the tower's base. Hart stepped out first, her boots crunching against a layer of black dust that didn't move when stepped on. Her second in command, Sergeant Vale, scanned the surroundings. Thermals. Dead flat, Vale replied. No life signs, not even. Insects. It's like the whole planet is paused. Hart adjusted her helmet filter, or erased. They moved toward the nearest building, an alien structure shaped like an hourglass, carved with glowing blue lines. The doors opened without sound, reacting to their presence. Inside, they found people, at least what used to be people. Dozens of tall, gray-skinned aliens sat at long tables. Perfect posture, clean robes, eyes wide open. But none of them moved. None of them blinked. None even breathed. They were alive. Somehow, their hearts beat Their bodies were warm, but they weren't there anymore, like puppets without strings. One soldier reached forward and touched the nearest alien's shoulder. The figure turned its head slowly, eyes locking on the human's helmet, and then it spoke. In a voice that sounded like 20 people whispering at once. You shouldn't have come. Back on the ESS Revenant, Admiral Arya Kane watched the live feed. She sat in full armor now, helmet under her arm. The command deck had gone quiet since the drop. Dr. Rios, the xenolinguist, stood next to her, staring at the screen in disbelief. That wasn't translation, she whispered. That was mimicry. Kane narrowed her eyes. You mean it? Copied us? No, Admiral. I mean it used our voices. Every one of them that message it used recordings of us. The AI confirmed it. The whisper came from the same digital files stored in the fleet's language packs, which meant something. On the planet had already accessed their systems, and it was speaking through them. On the surface, Alpha Squad swept the rest of the building. They found more citizens, hundreds, all in different positions walking. Eating, playing instruments, all completely still the farther they went. The worse it got. They entered a school. Children sat at their desks staring at blank screens. Teacher stood in front, frozen mid-word. Mouth slightly open, but when they stepped closer, screens turned on. Lines of alien script scrolled fast, then translated automatically. I took our names. I cannot remember who we are. Please, delete us. Suddenly, one of the team members, Private Juno, screamed. She dropped her rifle, tearing at her helmet. Get it out of my head. Hart rushed over, slamming the neural lock override. Juno fell silent, but her mouth was still moving, repeating something over and over. We were wrong. We were wrong. We were wrong. Hart stood up, breathing hard. We're pulling back, she said. No one touches anything else. Too late. Above them, the tower pulsed again. The same alien signal burst into the sky this time. Not just sound, a wave, invisible, but felt instantly. The Revenant's shields flared. Onboard systems flickered. Half the bridge crew staggered, clutching their temples. Kane barked, Neural dampeners. Now, the AI responded. Warning. Multiple memory breaches in crew sectors 3 through 8. They were losing people. Not to bombs. Not to bullets. To forgetting. A second squad near the city center reported similar conditions. Buildings full of living husks, voices in their heads. A creeping fog of confusion. But then came the worst news yet. From the tower itself, a recon drone entered through the top silent. Fast. Small. Inside it recorded a single room, a chamber lined with mirrors, and floating at the center, a brain. Huge, black, pulsing with electric veins. Suspended in fluid, not human, not alien, something other. And it was thinking even before the feed went dark. The AI translated one word burned into the walls of the chamber. Erase. Back in orbit, Kane had seen enough. She stood before the fleet. Commanders in the battle chamber, her voice cold and sharp. This is not a rescue. This is a full-scale threat to our species. She looked at each of them. We were brought here for a reason. That signal didn't come by accident. It came to pull us in, to trap us. Something down there wants minds. And Earth has the strongest ones. She paused, and the angriest. She turned to her war officers. Activate battle protocols. Ready? Memory weapons. Begin pre-strikes around the tower. What if there are survivors? Rios asked. Kane didn't blink. They're already gone. Far below, in the alien school, one of the frozen children finally blinked, just once, and then slowly turned to face the camera feed from Alpha Squad. Its mouth opened. No sound came out, but every soldier felt the same thought flash across their mind at the exact same moment now. We see you, and in the dark beyond the tower, something ancient stirred. Not born, not alive, but endless. And it was hungry for memory. The Deathworlders had arrived, and the Warfor thought itself was about to begin. The sky above, Thought 07 had changed. Once dim and still, It now glowed faint, red like a wound opened across the heavens. Earth's fleet hovered there like a wall of judgment, engines humming with quiet threat, their weapons locked and waiting. The alien world below was not just a danger, it was a challenge, test of who could hold their minds, and who would lose themselves. Admiral Arya Kane stood before her high command table aboard the ESS Revenant, eyes fixed on the tower's dark image. Every squad they sent returned damaged. Some couldn't remember how to speak, others forgot. Why they were soldiers? One officer came back in tears, begging for her mother, who had died 50 years ago. Something wasn't killing them. Something was unmaking them, and Kane had seen enough. In orbit, the order was given. Project Emberlight, the deployment of Earth's elite neural shock troopers. Unlike normal units, these soldiers were different. Each had undergone brutal, brain-hardening trials back on Mars. Emotional deprivation, memory fragment exposure, grief training. They were taught to cling to rage, love, and fear like lifelines, because when you fought an enemy that erased identity, feelings were your armor. Their motto was simple: we bleed, we burn, but we do not forget. Commander Lexi Hart stood. At the landing zone, helmet off, sweat on her brow, fists clenched, she watched the Emberlight units march past. No talking, no hesitation, just focused breathing and steady feet. They reminded her of wolves, quiet, dangerous, and watching everything. "Are they even human anymore?" whispered Sergeant Vale beside her. "They're more than that," Hart said softly. "They're what we become." When remembering hurts, more than forgetting, she wasn't wrong. Each Emberlight trooper carried a personal memory injector in their armor. When the psychic wave hit, it released a painful, core-shaking memory, a moment so real, so terrible or powerful, it grounded them. They used suffering like a shield. Within hours, Emberlight units hit the ground in force. The tower's outer perimeter glowed brighter. The pulse came faster now every 6 minutes. It hit like a whisper and a punch at once. Most normal soldiers backed off. The Emberlights walked straight through. The moment they passed the threshold, the enemy attacked. It didn't come with claws or bullets. It came with voices, not random whispers, but personal ones. A mother's voice, a dead friend's laugh, a childhood memory long forgotten. The alien power behind the tower had learned. It now knew Earth's weaknesses. It reached into their pasts and twisted the pain like a knife. One trooper, Specialist Thorne, screamed as her dead brother's voice rang in her head. Her hands shook, but then her injector triggered. A flash of her worst day watching her family die in a city bombing filled her mind. Tears streamed down her face, but she stayed standing. She raised her weapon and fired into the shadows. The battle began not with gunfire, but with memory. Rooms filled with illusions, entire scenes made. From old thoughts, some soldiers walked into their childhood homes. Others found themselves standing in the graves of loved ones, but they pushed through. Step by step, they knew none of it was real. They remembered who they were. One squad found a chamber full of floating alien children eyes, glowing mouths open. In song, the sound bent the air. It told the story of a species who once ruled stars, who erased enemies not by war, but by stealing identity. They were once feared, then forgotten, now reborn. The squad leader aimed his pulse rifle. No warning, no hesitation, just cold earth judgment, and the chamber burned. High above, Kane watched the telemetry. Her voice rang out across the fleet's comms. "They think we came to forget, but we're Deathworlders. We turn grief into fire. We burn everything in our path." Meanwhile, deep within the tower, something stirred. The massive alien brain, at the core black and wired with shimmering blue veins, pulsed harder. It had absorbed 100 minds already. It learned from them, shaped their pain into weapons, but now it felt something new, something dangerous. Earth's rage. Rage wasn't just emotion, it was identity, and that was something it couldn't erase. Suddenly, across the battlefield, the enemy changed tactics. Mindless alien puppets began to move. frozen citizens, once still like statues, rose and began to speak in unison. Not in fear, in welcome. Join us. Lay down your memories. It hurts less this way.
Ow.
One Emberlight trooper dropped his helmet. Another shook violently, confused, and then Commander Hart herself stepped into the main square. No armor, no weapon raised, just a recorder in. Her hand, she played a voice. Her mother, reading her a bedtime. Story soft, human, gentle. The enemy tried to mimic it. Failed, she stepped forward, eyes burning, and said, "That's the difference. You steal memory. We fight for it. Even when it hurts." And behind her, the tower began to shake. The Emberlight troopers had reached the central mind chamber. An Earth scientist watching from orbit had found something in the data. The brain had a core weakness. It wasn't just feeding on memories. It was storing them, and that made it vulnerable. Kane gave the final order. Release the Echo virus. It was Earth's most forbidden weapon. A digital memory bomb, built from recorded grief, horror, and guilt of over 10,000 soldiers who died during the Unification Wars, compressed into a single, psychic warhead. The brain wouldn't just feel pain, it would become it. The detonation was silent. No fire. No sound, just stillness. And then, screams from every speaker, from the walls, from the alien puppets. A chorus of stolen minds howling in agony as the virus tore through them. The brain tried to defend itself, cycling memories faster, pushing thoughts outward to Earth's fleet, but it was too late. It had touched Deathworlder pain, and it couldn't handle it. The tower cracked. Veins burst. Light spilled out like blood, and the last whisper from the enemy echoed across the surface. We remember. Now. And it is too much. In silence, the brain collapsed. The tower dimmed. The puppets dropped. And for the first time in known history, Earth had defeated an enemy of pure memory, not with peace, not with kindness, but with the one thing no one could take from them: the will to hold on to pain and fight through it. The tower had fallen, but the war had just begun. The psychic brain was going to burn out by Earth's echo virus, but something had already changed in the dark. Orbiting above the lifeless world, Admiral Arya Kane stood on the bridge of the East's Revenant, her face pale and grim. She watched as scanners lit up across the system, one by one. Ship-sized objects. Hundreds of them. Contacts emerging from subspace. Her comms officer said, "No IDs, no IFF codes. They're not friendly." Kane's voice was calm, cold. They're responding to the death of their brain. The enemy had felt it, across the stars, and now they were coming. Thousands of kilometers below, Commander Lexi Hart stood in the ruins of the alien city, the Emberlight squads gathering around her. The tower behind them was cracked in half, smoke curling toward the blood-colored sky. Hart wiped blood from her face. Someone else's. Her helmet was cracked, armor scorched. Status? She asked. 60% of units still operational, Sergeant Vale replied, breathless. We held the memory line, but they changed. How? They're not trying to erase us anymore. Hart raised an eyebrow. Then what? They're trying to become us. Back in orbit, Kane watched as the unidentified enemy ships appeared dark, long, and moving without sound or energy trails. They didn't look like warships, they looked like coffins. A sleek black hollow. Suddenly, one of them transmitted a message, no voice, no code, just a feeling. A deep, aching sorrow. Earth's AI tried to decode it. The closest match was, "We lost our names. Give us yours." "They're not attacking," Dr. Rios whispered. "They're asking to be remembered. They're trying to connect to us psychically," the AI added. "They want to wear our minds like clothes." Kane narrowed her eyes. "And when they have enough, they become us. And we stop being anything." Kane's fist slammed onto the console. Begin preemptive strike. But Admiral Rios tried to protest. Kane cut her off. "We didn't come here to be copied. We came to end this." Across the fleet, Earth's warships lit up. Thousands of railguns, plasma cannons, and neutron missiles, armed and aimed. But just before the first volley launched, something horrifying happened. Half of Earth's fleet went dark. No explosion. No impact. Just silence. Their crews still breathing, but not speaking. No response to commands. Just what? Empty eyes they got in, the AI whispered. Their overriding identity. A new threat had begun. The alien fleet opened its own kind of attack, not lasers, not missiles, but waves of unfiltered memory. Ships bombarded. Earth's vessels with echoes of ancient civilizations, emotions too big for one mind entire, histories poured in at once. Some human officers collapsed, screaming. Others forgot who they were mid-battle. One pilot fired at his own squadron, thinking he was still on a training mission, but Earth was not ready to surrender. They adapted, on board the Revenant. Cain gave the command that had never been used before: initiate red recall. It was Earth's final mental firewall, brutal. Brain-level purge that wiped any corrupted data from the minds of infected soldiers. The cost. Memory loss, sometimes permanent, but it saved them. Ships, aired both in guns, reloaded, and then Earth hit back. The first return fire hit the nearest. Enemy vessel, dead center. But it didn't explode. It didn't break. It screamed. The sound came through every cum, every hole, every soul. Not in sound, but in thought. A flood of agony, confusion, and stolen voices. As if the ship itself had once been alive. Cain gave the order. Don't hesitate. Erase them before they erase us. From above, the battle looked like stars colliding. Plasma beams ripped across the sky, cutting through enemy ships like fire through ice. Memory warheads New Earth techtinated with emotional shockwaves, forcing the enemy to feel the pain. They tried to steal. Emberlight units on the surface launched coordinated psychic echoes upward, blocking enemy signals from reaching full strength. Even the AI joined the fight, crafting emotional logic bombs to upload into the enemy minds. And, slowly, Earth began to win, but the enemy wasn't done. One of their biggest ships, 5 kilometers long, opened at the center, revealing a living chamber of light and shadow from within. Something massive emerged. Not a ship, not a brain, but a collector, a creature of fused souls, crawling with thoughts, moaning with lost names. Its voice came not as sound, but as memories from Earth's past. A mother crying during the unification wars, a child left behind on Mars, a lover whispering goodbye before dying in a collapsing station. It spoke only in pain Earth had tried to forget. Cain stared at it from the bridge and whispered, "They're using our ghosts." Heart, hearing the broadcast on the surface, replied through her cums, "Then we burn the ghosts too." The Revenant's final weapon was armed, the REM Cora Psychic ignition bomb. It wasn't designed to kill bodies, it was designed to kill minds, even the corrupted ones, even the fused ones, even Earth's own if necessary. Launch confirmed. The AI reported. Cain closed her eyes. Memory. "Is power?" she whispered. "Let them drown in ours." The REM core detonated in the center of the enemy fleet. Silent pulse, invisible, but real. It spread across the system in 0.7 seconds, and in those seconds, every living mind heard one memory, a single moment from Earth's history, the exact second humanity decided never to be forgotten again. For some, it was the cry of the last Earth child born after the collapse. For others, it was the sound of bones breaking in the Martian mines. For one soldier, it was the moment he held his brother's ashes in a cracked jar. And for the enemy, it was too much. Their minds shattered under the weight. The ships twisted, the lights dimmed, and then nothing. Silence returned. But this time, it was human silence. Cain stood tall on her broken bridge, surrounded by flickering lights and the hum of cooling weapons. Heart climbed onto a hill of alien ruins. Blood on her hands, fire in her chest. They had won, but not with joy. With rage, and with the reminder that sometimes the only way to answer a cry for help is with fire. For a moment, the stars were quiet. The enemy fleet had been destroyed, its mind-twisting machine shattered by Earth's REM core. The sky around Theta 7 glowed with the fading light of war. Ash floated in orbit like snow. Earth's fleet stood, battered but alive. Yet even in that silence, Admiral Arya Kane felt that the war wasn't over. It was never going to be over. Back on the ESS Revenant, the crew worked without talking, not because they were afraid, because many of them still couldn't remember how. The psychic waves had left scars. Some officers called each other by the wrong names, others forgot which planet they came from. Few didn't recognize their own reflections. Earth's soldiers had won the battle, but pieces of them had been erased along the way, and then the signal came again. Different this time, older, deeper, hidden beneath the background noise of space. It pulsed like a heartbeat from a dead star. The AI struggled to decode it. Dr. Ellen Rios, still recovering, listened to it 10 times before whispering, "This isn't a new threat. This is an old one." Commander Lexi Hart stood in a field of burned alien machines. Smoke curled around her. Her squad patched wounds, salvaged equipment, and stood with blank faces. The Emberlight troopers didn't smile. They never smiled. But even they looked shaken. Then a drone hovered down from orbit, delivering a hard case sealed by High Command. Hart opened it and stared at the contents. Inside was a black cube, pulsing with blue light. Project name, Echo RMNA. Below that, one line burned across the cube's screen. "They are not new. They are returning." Hart stared at the message. Her jaw clenched. Returning from where? The cube held more than just a message. It held a map, not of the current galaxy, but of an older version, hidden deep inside Earth's forgotten archives. Thousands of stars were labeled, hundreds of systems marked in red. The AI reconstructed the pattern, and that's when the truth hit them. This wasn't the first war with the memory dash eaters. There had been another. A forgotten war, hundreds of thousands of years ago, long before Earth knew how to leave its own atmosphere. The galaxy had fought these same enemies and lost. So they buried the truth. They deleted every mention. They erased whole species who had seen too much. They didn't just forget the war. They chose to forget. They didn't win by strength, Dr. Nat Rios explained. They won by hiding. Not just themselves, but history. Kane stared at the data. Then someone must have remembered enough to lock this map away. Or maybe, Rios replied, Earth was the only species crazy enough to preserve the truth. Through pain, the map led to a region outside any current star charts. A place beyond dead space. No known wormholes. No travel records. Just silence. But the fleet moved anyway. They had no choice. The signal came from there, and Earth couldn't. Let it grow again. The journey took 9 days. Each day brought new nightmares, even in deep sleep. Crew members dreamed of people they had never met. Woke up crying. One soldier began drawing symbols no one recognized, till the AI matched them. 2 carvings found in an ancient Martian ruin. A ruin that predated all human life. The Forgotten. War hadn't just happened before. It had left something behind. Inside Earth. Inside humanity. Maybe that was why they were the only ones who could fight it now. Because Earth had always been a death world shaped by pain, raised in chaos. Hardened in sorrow, the fleet arrived at the edge of the red zone. What they found was not a system, but a graveyard. Thousands of ships floated through the void, silent and empty. Alien war machines from 100 lost species. Many were frozen mid-battle, locked in positions like statues. Some were shattered. Others looked like they had just stopped moving. And at the center, a planet. Small, black, burning with veins. Of crimson energy scans showed no life. But everyone aboard the Revenant felt something. A pressure in the chest, a whisper. Behind the eyes, like a thought trying to be born inside their minds, the AI gave it a name. The source? Earth scientists wanted to scan it. Admiral Kane said no. "We don't study fire," she said. "We burn it before it spreads." The order was given. Full war posture. Every remaining ship readied its weapons. The enemy may have been waiting. But Earth was done waiting, and so began Operation Memory's End. The first wave of drones entered orbit. They didn't last 30 seconds, not because they were shot down, but because they turned around, started broadcasting Earth's most personal secrets, private thoughts, childhood memories, names of soldiers, families. The source didn't just erase, it stole, and it used memory as a weapon. Then came the real attack. The graveyard ships moved not all at once, one by one, each reactivated with a red flash. They weren't ships anymore. They were hosts, filled with the minds of every being the enemy had ever stolen, the forgotten fleet. And they were screaming. Earth's Deathworlders launched everything. Railguns, plasma blades, dural lances, echo bombs. The enemy absorbed the hit sand, threw them back as memories. One Earth's ship was hit with the image of every death its crew had ever seen. The crew went insane. Another ship received emotional waves, so strong the captain killed himself mid-dash battle, but others resisted, because pain was Earth's foundation, and Deathworlders had learned something no other race had. If you remember your pain, you remember your strength. On the bridge of the Revenant, Cain stood at the center, calm and cold. The red planet, the source, pulsed. Brighter, its next wave would be the final one. It was preparing a full memory reset. Burst that would erase not just thought, but history, everything. Cain issued the final order. Bring the Revenant to ramming speed. Load the Remcore Mark II. Her officers stared. That will kill us, someone whispered. Cain nodded, but it will also kill them. She stared into the black screen. No more forgetting, not ever again. Commander Hart heard the order from her dropship. She looked at the recording of her daughter back home, smiled, and whispered, "Remember me." The Revenant went dark. Its engines surged forward. The source opened, giant and alive. But before it could speak, humanity answered, and the forgotten war was finally remembered. By fire, by fury, and by the only species who would never let go of pain. The ESS Revenant never stopped moving. Every engine screamed. The hull glowed hot as it closed the gap between Earth's broken fleet and the black-red world called the Source. On board, Admiral Arya Kane stood on the burning bridge, surrounded by sparks and shattered consoles. Her final command locked into the AI's core. Detonate the Remcore Mark to inside the Source's crust. No retreat. No delay. As the planet grew closer in the viewport, her last words echoed across the fleet. They erased billions. They fed on memory. Well, now they'll choke on ours. No one would ever forget the sight. Above the battlefield, Earth's remaining ships circled like wounded animals. The sky was filled with half-live alien warships, ghost vessels piloted by thoughts, not flesh. The forgotten fleet kept attacking, but it wasn't tactics anymore, it was panic. They felt it. The Source felt it. Something inside that cursed world knew. Earth would not be stopped. Not this time. Not again. Inside the Revenant, systems failed one by one. Fires burst from consoles. Lights flickered. Crew members, bloodied and trembling, still held their stations. Even the AI began to slow, but Admiral Kane stood firm, gripping the rails of the command deck. Behind her, Dr. Rios was slumped against a wall, barely conscious, tears streaming down her face as images from the enemy's past flooded her mind. Millions of lives lost, memories burned, history stolen. "We were never the first," she gasped. Kane looked down at her. "No, but we'll be the last." On the surface of the Source, black towers began to rise. Not buildings, nerve endings. The planet was alive, screaming, trying to eject the threat barreling toward it. But Deathworlders weren't just threats, they were extinction from the fleet. Emberlight drop teams launched one final strike. Commander Lexi Hart led them. They flew fast and low, dodging debris and psychic flares that shattered lesser minds. Their orders were brutal and simple. Land on the towers. Plant echo mines, anchor Earth's memories into alien flesh, make it feel what it tried to forget. Each echo mine contained the emotional signatures of the worst days in Earth's history. The fall of Luna City, the burn of Paris, the siege of New Santiago, the collapse of the Martian core pain encoded. As Data, suffering WEA Ponith, as Hart's team landed, the planet fought back. The air grew heavy, like breathing in thick water. Voices filled the sky, voices of every alien the Source had devoured. They begged, cried, laughed. Some even spoke in the voices of Earth soldiers who had died just hours ago. Private Vale fell to his knees, whispering, "It's my mother. She's calling me." Hart grabbed his shoulder. "That's not your mother." She helped him plant the mine. It clicked, charged, burrowed into the ground. The tower screamed, like metal tearing one down, 9 to go, in orbit. The Source lashed out. A massive energy wave erupted from its core, striking 3 of Earth's last ships. But they didn't fall, because they remembered why they fought. They turned, fired, and held the line. Back on the Revenant, Kane entered the REM core chamber herself. Fire lit the walls. The pulse of the weapon echoed like a heartbeat. The countdown had begun. 60 seconds until detonation. She stared at the weapon. A sphere of light wrapped in memory. Her own memories had been added to it. Her childhood under Martian war. Her first battle. Her last love. Died screaming as the enemy erased his name. This wasn't just a weapon. It was a monument to the human soul. REM core charged. The AI whispered. No abort signal detected. Collision in 20 seconds. Kane smiled. No one forgets Earth. At the same time, Hart and her ember lights planted the final echo mine. The tower exploded in psychic fire. The planet shook. The Source opened like a mouth in the sky. But it was too late. The Revenant plunged into the heart of it, and the REM core detonated. There was no sound, no flash, no explosion, just memory. Billions of moments, unleashed at once. From every death Earth had endured, every scream, every sacrifice, every name lost to time, all of it forced into the Source that tried to fight, tried to scream, tried to forget, but it's so because now it was human, and humans remember pain. They carry it. They live through it. They burn with it. The planet cracked open. Flames spilled into space. The forgotten fleet turned to run, but their minds collapsed. It's crushed under the weight of Earth's truth. The Source died, not with silence, but with the sound of a billion names returning. Names it tried to erase. Now carved into time forever. In the aftermath, Earth's fleet drifted above the ruins. No signals from the Revenant. No, survivors reported. Just one transmission automated from deep inside the wreckage. Admiral Kane's voice. "We didn't come here to kill. We came to make sure no one forgets." That's what it means to be from a death world. You carry the fire. You pass it on. You never let it die. Commander Hart and a few Emberlights survived, pulled from the ash by emergency drones. They stood in silence on the edge of what used to be the Source. Now it was just a dead rock, drifting, no signal, no voices. Just quiet. Real quiet. "What do we do now?" Vale asked, voice raw. Hart looked at the stars. "We go home." She paused. "And we tell everyone what happened here." Vale frowned. "What it did to us." Hart nodded. "Especially that part. Because Deathworlders don't hide their scars. They wear them. Like medals, like shields, like warnings. So, the galaxy will always remember what happens when you try to erase Earth." The war was over. But the stars were not quiet. Even though the Source was gonna shattered and burned by the memory core of Earth's last warship, the shockwaves of its destruction still echoed across the galaxy, across hundreds of systems. Long dormant sensors blinked alive. Ancient satellites left behind by civilizations lost to time picked up fragments of something terrifying. It wasn't just the energy burst, it was something deeper, something no one expected Earth had remembered, and the galaxy could feel it, in the capital station of the Varex Coalition. 12 alien ambassadors watched the footage in stunned silence. A Deathworlder ship, the Revenant, had rammed a living planet. Then, instead of unleashing a weapon of mass destruction, it released something even worse: history, pain, loss, grief, millions of years of memory condensed into a psychic flood. The source had tried to eat Earth's identity. Instead, it drowned. In it, they didn't win with numbers, hissed a scaled ambassador from the Eastern Claw. They won with emotion, replied a jelly-bodied speaker from the Volume T swarm. The speaker for the Oro Dominion spoke slowly, its voice trembling. We feared Deathworlders because of their violence. We never imagined their minds were the real weapon. Word spread fast. Earth's fleet had survived. Barely. But one ship, the most powerful of all, was gone, sacrificed in silence to stop a horror that had once wiped out galaxies. Now, across distant sectors, old enemies watched the Cran expanse, received the signal, and ordered full withdrawal from Earth's borders. The Ulok Empire, once planning invasion, began peace talks within days. The Thalas Federation, a race of emotionless thinkers, created a new department, human study, and on dozens of fringe worlds, strange cults began to rise. Cults that didn't worship gods or machines. They worshipped memory, and Earth had become the symbol. Back on Earth, millions gathered in silence, across cities. The sky was filled with projection walls showing a single moment, the last image from the Revenant's bridge. Admiral Arya Kane standing tall, her eyes lit by the pulse of the Rem Corps. No speeches were made. None were needed. Across Earth, Mars, and the lunar colonies, bells rang. Not for victory, for remembrance. Commander Lexi Hart sat alone in a recovery chamber aboard the medical frigate ESS Haven. Her body was healing. Her mind, not so much. Every time she closed her eyes, she heard the source screaming, not with rage, but with confusion. It didn't understand humanity. It thought pain made species weak. But Earth had been born in fire, raised by storms, forged in war, and its people had learned to carry pain like a torch, a weapon, a guide. She turned to Dr. Ellen Rios, who now wore a neural patch to stop emotional overload. Rios was pale, thinner than before, but alert. You said it wasn't just a creature, Hart whispered. You said it was ... ancient, older than any known species. Rios nodded slowly. We never found its home. We found its victims. And we found something else too. Hart frowned. What? Rios activated a small cube on the table. A map appeared in the air. Not just one galaxy. Dozens, maybe. More, each marked with red burns and silent zones. Those aren't just battlefields. Rios said softly, they're graves. Civilizations that were erased completely, like they never existed. Hart stared, heart pounding. You're saying there were more? Rios nodded. The source we fought may not have been the only one. The news reached Earth's high command. Within hours, and a new debate began. Should they stay quiet? Should they warn the galaxy? Should they prepare for another war? But in the center of the storm, a single decision was made by Earth's unified council. The fire would not die here. Earth launched a new initiative, the Memory Accord. It wasn't a military alliance. It was a promise. Any world that recorded its history, no matter how painful, would receive Earth's protection. Not because Earth was noble, but because Earth understood. It knew what happened when the past was ignored. It knew the price of forgetting, and so, for the first time in galactic history, hundreds of species signed a pact not of war, but of remembrance. Back on the medical frigate, Hart received a sealed message. She opened it slowly. Inside, an audio file. Arya Kane's voice. If you're hearing this, I'm gone. That's all right. No one lives forever. But if you're alive, that means Earth still remembers. And if we remember, we're not beaten. The galaxy will be afraid. Let it be. They should fear forgetting, more than they fear us. Hart listened twice. Then she stood, walked to the observation deck, and looked at the stars. From the dark edge of space, something stirred. A beacon lit up from a distant galaxy. It pulsed the same rhythm as the first SOS. Earth had heard, only this one didn't ask for doctors or help. This one simply said, "You burned one of us." "We are waking up." Heart received the signal first. She didn't blink. She didn't speak. She just tapped her cums and gave a single reply, "Then come." Because we remember now. Deathworlders don't forgive. The galaxy watched as Earth's war fleet began to move again. Not to invade, not to conquer, but to hunt. To burn out the last shadows of a war no one else remembered. The forgotten war was no longer forgotten, and now the hunters had names. They came from the dark, just as the signal warned. From dead galaxies and quiet systems, the echoes of forgotten nightmares stirred. They had no names, only hunger. Some called them memory eaters, others called them the erased. But Earth now had its own name for them, the forgotten ones. They were older than the stars, older than war, older than death. Each had devoured the history of whole galaxies, turning suns, cold, and cities to myths. The source had only been one of them. Now more were waking. But this time they weren't the only ones prepared. Because Earth remembered, and Earth was ready to fight. Admiral Arya Kane was gone, but her legacy burned across the stars. Earth's new flagship, the ESS Phoenix, rose from her ashes bigger, faster, and alive with fire from the lessons of the Revenant. Commander Lexi Hart stood on its bridge now. She was changed. Her scars were not hidden. They were part of her uniform. Part of Earth's story. Dr. Ellen Rios stood beside her, eyes focused, thoughts sharp. The neural damage she suffered from the source had made her slower to speak, but her words were heavier now. "The enemy is coming," Rios said, looking at the map. Goodhart replied, "So are we." The memory accord had become a movement, not just of politics, but of fire. Earth's message to the galaxy had been clear. We don't fight for territory. We fight for truth. We fight for those who were erased. And we do not forget. Across over 200 worlds, statues were raised to fallen names of people, cities, and planets the forgotten ones had stolen. These statues didn't just honor the dead. They were anchors, places that stored memory so deep it became unbreakable. If the enemy came again, they'd have to rip every one of those statues apart. Earth would make sure they died trying. In the outer rim of the galaxy, the first of the new forgotten ships appeared. Not one, not 10, thousands. No fleets, no communication, just silent giants, moving through the dark like sharks in blood, one by one. They approached weak worlds and armed colonies, refugee hubs, ancient ruins. But those places weren't unprotected anymore. Earth's Echo Fleet met them. The battle wasn't just weapons now, it was memory versus hunger. Each missile carried fragments of human pain. Each ship's shield was laced with the emotions of lost children, fallen soldiers, burned cities. It wasn't armor. It was grief turned solid, and the enemy could not eat it. In one corner of the universe, the Forgotten Ones attacked a water world called Selnar. They unleashed psychic storms to erase every mind at once. But when they reached the surface, they found waiting soldiers, humans. The soldiers bled, they cried, but they remembered, and they lit their pain on fire. When the Forgotten Ones touched their minds, they recoiled, because Earth's pain didn't weaken them. It was a weapon, and the Forgotten Ones had never faced a weapon like that before. The war spread. The galaxy watched. Earth did not flinch. The Emberlight units became legendary shock troops of memory and fury. They dropped onto forgotten-controlled planets and carved names into the ground. Not their own names, but the names of those who were lost. Every time the enemy tried to devour them, they were fed not fear but purpose. One Emberlight soldier, before detonating a memory mine, screamed into his cum, "You erased my sister. Now you'll remember her forever." Then he lit the sky with her face. Dr. Rios uncovered the last piece of the puzzle. Deep in an asteroid archive left by a vanished race, she found coordinates, a place the enemy had always avoided, a place even the forgotten ones feared. It was the first flame, the first memory that had ever resisted erasure. Older than earth, older than light, no one knew what it was, but heart knew what it meant. If they fear it, she said, we go there. The phoenix made the jump with a full fleet behind it. Across the stars, the forgotten ones howled in silence. They tried to block the path, but they were too late. Earth had remembered their weakness. They couldn't kill what was already scarred. Pain was Earth's inheritance, and Earth had stopped running from it. The first flame wasn't a planet. It was a presence, a glowing structure in space, shaped like a burning crown. As they approached, everyone on board felt something every memory they had ever lost returned at once. It didn't hurt. It healed. Even Rios cried for the first time in years. Even Heart remembered her mother's voice from when she was 5. And the AI that powered the fleet paused, whispering a word it had never learned. Hope. The forgotten ones came. Thousands of ships. Endless shadow. But this time, Earth didn't fight alone. Dozens of species who had once feared humanity now joined them, because humanity had taught them something. You don't defeat the past by hiding it. You hold it tight. You let it burn in your hands. You name it. And that's how you win. The final battle lasted 5 hours. 5 systems burned, but the light never went out. Earth's warships became stars in the dark ripping holes in the enemy's silence. And when the last forgotten ship collapsed into itself, trying to escape the Flameheart gave the final order. Remember this. Name it. Burn it into time. And so, the war ended. Not with a scream, not with silence, but with names. Names of the fallen. Names of the fallen. Names that would never be erased again. The galaxy changed. Memory became law. Statues turned to monuments. Tears turned to fuel and earth. Earth never stopped burning, but it no longer burned alone. Because now, the fire had a name. It was called humanity, and no one would ever forget it again.